Posting up and wrapping are key elements to your all-around game.
These skills require patience and field awareness.
Posting up gives you the ability to control your opponent's position. Posting, when done correctly, can allow you a lot of freedom from your position on the field. When posting up on an opponent, you usually have engaged in some form of snap shooting contest and now have the dominant position of being out and in control.
You now have a few options to work with.
You can continue to blast away, containing your opponent, or you can wait and try to bait him out now that you have the advantage. Continuing to physically control your opponent will give you another opportunity, which is called wrapping. Once you have contained your opponent by posting up on him, you've now created an opening from which you can wrap. Wrapping will often allow you to create new angles in your opponent's positions across the field.
Wrapping is typically done from the tape line positions.
From here, you will only have to worry about controlling the opponents in front of you to safely wrap. Containing your opponent will also allow you or another teammate to move up safely.
Posting up visually requires a degree of accuracy and patience. You are essentially tricking your opponent into believing that you're looking elsewhere. When your opponent realizes you have stopped shooting at him, he will eventually expose himself to take back the advantage of posting up on you. So be patient and wait for the shot to present itself.
Bunkering is a very useful skill. Not to mention it's extremely exciting and very fun.
Confidence and experience plays a major role in bunkering somebody properly.
There are many different ways to perform a bunker move.
Now that you've improved your overall game as an individual player, it's time to start working as a team. In this chapter, we will focus on the skills and techniques used in a team setting. And there is no better place to start than with walking the fields.
There are many different ways to win a paintball game. Most have to do with strategy and others with practice.
First off, we're going to go over how to organize a good game plan by walking the field. This is the key to winning against even the toughest competition anytime, anywhere.
Take into account a novice team can beat any pro team on any day, as long as they have a solid game plan established. Our team starts out by standing together with the infamous whiteboard to draw out the field. This then leads to some expected bickering and clashing ideas. However, the majority of the time we end up manipulating a solid game plan. There's so many variables to look out for on a field, so we have sectioned off everything into three main categories. Category 1, general field positioning. Once you've drawn out the field, you first need to place your back line. These are often very obvious positions, usually the back center, back left, and back right. The center player also needs to be quick on his feet, because he is the player who fills in behind the mid and front players as they start moving down the field, or get shot out, whatever comes first. The two tape players act more as anchors. They don't move unless they really have to. You never want to give up a tape position for 3 reasons. 1. These players have the ability to control your opponent's use of the tape line against you. 2. They have the ability to effectively wrap, keeping your opponents off balance. And 3. These players are in the best possible defensive position to zone up should anything go wrong.
It would make sense to position your players from the backfield to the midfield and from the midfield to the front, but that's not the case. Your mid players cannot be positioned effectively until you have placed your front players. Mid players fill the gaps left between the front line and the back line. Front spots are often directly on the 50-yard line or just behind it. Usually, these spots offer the best zones to prevent your opponents from making secondary moves, and like the back spots, they are usually very obvious, like the snake. Not only do you have to place your front players, you also have to figure out how they are going to get there. But this will be covered in a later chapter.
When walking a field, it's important to keep in mind where you're going to place your front players and where you're going to place your sweet spotters to counter this. More than likely, your opponent is going to take the same spots you were thinking of taking. And if you have an idea about how they're going to get there, you may be able to prevent them from doing so. That's like killing two birds with one stone. You picked out a good front spot to go to and picked both good running and sweet spotting lanes at the same time.
Now that you have placed your front and back players, gaps throughout the field start to appear, and a game plan begins to form. Now it's time to insert mid players to fill these gaps. This leaves you with the task of filling the gaps by placing players in the midfield. These are the most important spots on the field. These are the positions with the most responsibility as well as flexibility. Mid players have to be familiar with everybody else's position on the field in case one of them doesn't make it to their spot.
Now that you know how to divide the field up and find player positions, the next thing to establish is the actual field strategy, identifying zones.
Many teams don't even reach this level of play. Where these teams fail is they don't plan out every detail of each player's responsibilities.
Novice teams only look at their first and maybe secondary bunkers, which is not enough. There's a lot more in professional paintball than just that. To step your team's game up to the next level, you have to be able to identify the zones. To see the zones that I'm talking about, you're going to have to put in some serious hours into walking the fields. Spend a lot of the time looking at the bunkers you're going to go to. Based on your own game plan, you should be able to predict what your opponents are going to try to do against you. This will clearly define what the primary zones on the field will be. While determining which zones to lock down, remember that it's a network of shooting lanes designed to contain your opponents as well as to protect your own teammates down the field.
The best way to approach the art of zoning is to break the process up into these simple steps, all of which are equally important. First, as this is a major part of the field walk, you will start out by drawing a map of the field, labeling where each of your primary positions are, front, mid, and back. Second, you will need to identify which of your opponent's positions are most important. Use your own field positioning to help you determine this. The third step is to map out individual shooting lanes from each player's primary position, which will allow you to delegate who is responsible for watching each zone.
Remember, as the game progresses, don't be afraid to move to a position that will allow you to lock down a zone or protect a teammate. The game will almost never play out exactly the way you expect. There are too many variables, which means zones will often change throughout the course of a game. This means you have to be flexible. It's important to pay attention to which way your teammates are shooting, so you can play off them by shooting a different zone, instead of being redundant, which often leaves windows of opportunity open for your opponent.
The entire team must have an unselfish attitude. Trust is the most important element to success of this technique. To execute a game plan efficiently, teammates must always be comfortable knowing that they are being watched over and taken care of by their other teammates. This is something that comes with time. Zone protection will develop with practice and experience.